What is up, YouTube? Today we're going to be going over part 1 of the most dominant pass defenses you will see out there. I guarantee you will get stops because people don't have a clue on what to do. Now, this is part 1. Let's go ahead and get this to 15 likes, and we'll continue on with part 2. Now, we are using the Packers for a very specific reason, and that is because their DBs are some of the fastest out there. We're going against the Kansas City Chiefs, mind you, okay? So we're going to go hop down and check out their roster. Most of them have 90 speed and above. Some have less. So kicking it off, Darnell Savage, 93 speed. Will Redmond, 90 speed. Scott, little slow, but still viable, 88 speed. And then you got Adrian Amos, Jair Alexander, Kevin King, Josh Jackson. We're going to skip Chandon Sullivan. Take notes. Hallman, 93, and so overall, and then Green, 89. So we've got the DBs to be able to run this defense. Now, this is the nickel 3-3-5, what I think the ultimate pass defense, and later into this little scheme, this is a full scheme, by the way, we'll be talking about some things you guys can do for run defense. Now, there's some glitchy stuff that I've discovered that I don't think, well, I'm sure pros have it, but they probably have in their ebooks that I'm going to be giving away, that I'm going to be doing for free. And so stay tuned, subscribe if you guys are new. We're going to go ahead and get it into trip side in. This is the offense I'm currently learning. I feel like my defense is pretty good now that I've self-taught myself this stuff. We're going to start off in PA post shot. Now, personnel, I'm not really too worried because they're all fast for whatever that's all I care about. So we're going to go PA post shot. Two things we need to talk about in this part. Personnel and coaching adjustments. The specific coaching adjustments we're going to be focusing on are flats and curl flats. Now, I wish EA would take it to where hard flats aren't adjusted by flats, but, you know, it is what it is. What I have been doing, and this is very important, and it kind of depends on the part of the field, is I've been setting these flats to 30 and curl flats to 0. Now, as we get into crossman, it'll make a lot more sense as to why that is crucial. If you want to be able to run this defense, be sure you're setting it if they have a long ways to go. And as we get into more depth about it, we'll discuss changing your zone drops and what you need to do in certain situations when you need to adjust and all this other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get into 3-3-5. We're going to start off in our personnel. All your DBs, every single one of them across the board must have speed. So remember, most of these guys, King 90, Savage 93, Adrian Amos 92, Jair Alexander 93 or something like that, and then Sullivan. I don't remember how much Sullivan was, but I do know Redmond has 90 speed, so I'm going to go ahead and sub him in. Now for these guys, your linebackers, safeties. We're going to go back into the pause menu. We'll be right back. I'm going to have to remind myself which ones are the fastest ones, so we'll be right back. So upon discovering, we actually want to go ahead and sub in Hallman. I'm not entirely sure how you say that. Just so we can have Redmond in. Where did he go to? At a linebacker position for simply just speed. All these linebackers are slower than molasses. They are super slow, and so we want to go ahead and get them off the field. I believe Green was 88, 89 speed or something like that. If it's possible, I would honestly sub them all in. Maybe keep one linebacker in if you expect them to run, so then you don't have to go ahead and sub in all this personnel. But this is specifically for passing today. In a separate video, we'll be talking about run defense out of the nickel 3-3-5, some adjustments you guys can use to play extremely aggressive run defense. So nickel 3-3-5 is the play. Remembering, when we are going into coaching adjustments, usually this is how I'm running it at the start. When we kick the ball the very first, right off the bat, I'm setting my zone drops to 30, 25, somewhere around there, and then I'm adjusting them as the game goes on. If they're hitting me with double slants, short corners, dig routes, crossers, I'm going to be adjusting it the whole game. That's kind of where the chess match begins. So we're coming on nickel 3-3-5. Tampa 2 is going to be the play. First, talking about a little bit about pass defense. Do you or don't you have auto flip turned on? When should you, when shouldn't you? If you're very simply put, if you're facing a bunch or a trips player, have auto flip turned on. It's just one of those adjustments then you don't have to worry about. It's automatically flip strong side for you, so you don't have to take the time, flip your defense. So right here, we're going to go and, you know what, we'll just go into coaching adjustments real fast. We'll turn auto flip on. We're going to go into nickel 3-3-5 odd, or 3-3-5 odd. And we're going to start off on PA post shot. We're going to talk a little bit about cross man, not in a whole huge detail, but we're going to go into this Tampa too. There's a couple different secrets about this Nico 335 that I don't think a lot of people know about. So first and foremost, in this particular defense, I like to baseline. Now, I know baseline wasn't the best idea against Trip Set last year, but the reason I like to baseline is because notice how these corners drop back versus a non-baseline. Like we go ahead and double baseline, they reset to the natural positions. They're about 5 yards off the line. When we go ahead and baseline, they're now about 10 yards, roughly 9, 8, somewhere around there, off the line of scrimmage. Remember, we set their depth to 30. If you press, they're going to have to make up a lot more room. Whereas you baseline, they only have 20 yards instead of 30 yards. And that's going to be crucial as we get into crossman because we want the Clouds to be able to play back deep. Now, I'm going to back the ball off right here. We're going to go, we'll go about right about here, opposite side of the field. And on the 30-yard line on the opposite side. So, anyways, when we talk about crossman, I usually like to baseline. Now, it's going to be different versus gun bunch. Gun bunch, I probably won't baseline, but trips tight end, I like to baseline because it just gives me more space to work with. Now, when we set our zone drops to 30, remember, this affects soft squats, hard flats, and cloud flats. All three of those are specifically impacted by the flats. Not the curl flats, but the flats. This is where curl flats start to come in handy. Holman, as well as Burks, can both be put into curl flats, as well as Green, but we're going to not worry about him. So what I like to do personally against a trip set to start off is I'll take Burks and I'll put him into a curl flat. Do not put him into a hard flat. Otherwise, he'll drop to the same depth as that cloud flat. Curl flats will play down and aggressive if you set them to 0. Here's a warning though. I don't know. Maybe it was just, I think it was DDA, honestly. Whatever, EA Sports, it's in the game. Sometimes your curl flats will just do something like this. They'll just kind of stand here and just, yeah, that's about it. They'll come down, stand at the line of scrimmage basically, and just do nothing. So just kind of be aware of that. Sometimes it will happen, sometimes it won't. Now, against a trip set, there's a couple things we got to worry about. First off, the slot receiver is almost your biggest priority. And then next, the tight end. We got to be careful that we do not give up the tight end on a streak. So instead of having a curl flats, I usually give up the underneath stuff until they absolutely need it. And then I'll go ahead and reset my zones by hitting left trigger and play some hard flats. So against a trip set, what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put A to A, do something like this so far. And then bang, crossman, him to X, him to B. And then you can actually do something like this. Crossman, and then user right here. Now, some people like to put them into a spy. I don't personally think it makes a difference. Some people will say otherwise. To each their own. And then from here to kind of have a safety valve, this is just a very basic defense against a trips set. I like to put my safety into a middle third just in case something goes wrong with a crossman, like he gets burnt really badly. As a user, your primary concern should be anything short, like motion snaps. If they motion over a receiver on a slant, that's going to be your biggest worry, and that's where you're going to have to take over as a user. Now, of course, we can get a little more adjusty to it and maybe start putting out some vert hooks shaded down and maybe start doing something like that, readjusting our hook zones. But again, with crossmans, as long as they are not motioning people over, if they do, change the crossman, and we can worry ourselves about that later. But for now, let's just go ahead and snap the ball. This is just a stock play, and you can see right there, bang, bagged right off the bat. Now, I want to talk about this wheel route real fast. This is where setting your clouds to 30 yards is key. So as we go into instant replay, I check a text from my wife. We're going to pay attention to this wheel route ran by Hardman. Now, this is a very classic defense of Madden 17, okay? So this is a few years ago. So we snap the ball. You see the cloud flat is playing aggressive enough to where this linebacker, oops, wrong line. Let me check real fast. This safety, hold up, who is it? It's the middle linebacker. There we go. The middle linebacker is able to catch up, and if they throw that, it is a pick. 9 times out of 10, it will be an INT. Now, if you notice that they are getting burned, what you can actually start doing is something a little bit different. Again, this is the basics of crossman. Why is it not unpausing? There we go. You can actually go ahead and crossman this guy to this guy, him to him, him to the tight end, that guy to here. Oops. And let's go this guy to here and that guy to there and do something like that. Yeah, it looks super complicated, but that's fine. And again, as a user, your primary concern is anything short, or if you see somebody getting beat because of his speed differential. So again, we'll go ahead and snap this ball. This is a very complicated defense, but again, you guys see the same result. Now, as we get into motion snaps, we'll talk about that in a separate video. You'll have to start changing up your crossman. Like, for example, a very basic way that I like to run PA post shot is just motion this guy over and streak, create a high-low with a flood on one side of the field. So right there, wow, we actually came in screaming. Blitz? Maybe. I'm going to go ahead and take this guy and put him on the spiral fast. So, really simple way that I like to set up PA post shot. Streak, drag, crossers. This is how I'm going to go ahead and set it up the entire time. And you can see right there, because we have it set to 30, again, that crosser's not open. But if we wanted to, we can go ahead and crossman him and take that away altogether. So, as we were talking about, as we're going to instant replay real fast, the underneath stuff. This is going to be your biggest threat, and since Al's is using the spy, obviously he's not going to play a spy. This underneath stuff, of course, it's going to be wide open. Now, let's just say you crossman this safety to this drag. That is now getting beat 100% of the time. And this is where your user comes into play. In Madden 21, also important to note, you cannot bump receivers, otherwise you will get punished every time. Guaranteed. Don't try it, because there's now PI for users only. As far as I know, there's no PI for the CPU, although there might be later on in the year, but it is, as far as it stands, strictly against users. So, just a couple things for defense to kind of set you guys up against different formations. We'll talk about gun bunch. We'll talk about some other trips formations, split close. Some of these meta plays you need to be worried about, and etc. And then in the third part, well, probably fourth part, I don't know how many parts there's going to be to this, we'll talk about run defense out of this. And actually how crossman is really good run defense, or manning up your safeties when done correctly is really good run defense this year. I think it's actually better than spies were in Madden 20. So that's going to take care of this video. If you guys are new to the channel, this is just an introduction to the whole defensive scheme I'm going to be releasing for you guys as I continue to learn more about it, as we continue to see the Madden 21 meta develop. Of course, it's going to be crossers, corners, posts. That doesn't change year to year a whole lot. But until next time, guys, subscribe if you are new, and we will see you in the next video. Remember, 10 to 15 likes, and we'll get the next part rolling much more quickly.